I've played World of Warcraft for, well, quite a while. I started in late vanilla and I've played all the expansions. Some of them I PvP'd a bit more, some of them I PvE'd more. But I've seen it change over time to the point where it is today in the run-up to Dragonflight. Blizzard have taken so many risky decisions over the years. Changing talent trees, normalizing gear, a ballooning amount of daily chores, cross-server systems, automated grouping and raiding, and so much more. And many of these decisions did make sense. Hey, raiding is one of our most awesome features. How can we get more people in to try it? Here's LFR. Our talent trees are getting too long and convoluted. Can we filter out all these little 1% crit or damage buffs into something more exciting? Well, they tried that in Cataclysm with the talent reworks and mastery. Certain servers are getting heavily overcrowded whilst others are on their last legs. Cross-server and sharding can solve both of these issues at once. And after a while, with all the changes piling up, it got a little bit much. Enter Classic. Blizzard were finally going to do it. To time travel back over a decade worth of updates and do the journey again, warts and all. And at the time, the player base was of a certain mindset, which was no changes. There were concerns Blizzard would try and anticipate issues and throw in some retail quality of life to the remake of World of Warcraft, and players were totally against that. We want the jank, the barely functional hunter pets, Major CCing you for over a minute, and all that other good stuff. And much like retail, I've played all of Classic the whole way through, and some things are, well, becoming increasingly problematic. You see, retail's gone the way it has to solve issues which are now becoming more and more noticeable in a Classic. And whilst the notion of no changes didn't even make it fully through Classic itself, now we're beginning to hit the expansions where the big changes began. Dungeon Finder in Wrath, Kata had the talent reworks, cross-server, LFR and so on. And with only a number of targeted changes for each expansion so far, is it any wonder we're seeing the same issues arise again, but this time way sooner than they did in retail, now that the player base is so much more conditioned to min-maxing the content and going as hard as they can. And let me tell you, the solutions they proposed back then would not be popular these days. All of these have been growing issues since midway through Classic, which I bet most Classic players will have an opinion on one way or the other, and I think we will all have had our gameplay impacted by each and every one of them to some degree. All of these are still ongoing, and in fact I don't think they will ever go away, because either Blizzard won't act on it, or a large number of the player base actively wants the game to be this way, and it's how they play it. These are what I feel will be Classic World of Warcraft's unsolvable problems, which it's speeding towards. Single server overpopulation. If players get to a point where their server dies or guild transfers happen and so on, you have the choice of where to transfer to. Given Classic servers are not cross-server, there's no cross-server dungeons or sharding, there is an extremely large incentive to play where the most players from your faction currently are located. This leads players to populating only a handful of super big or mega servers. Literally dozens upon dozens of realms that once had a population are now flat out dead, and it's the sensible thing to do. There's no point choosing to leave one sinking ship to another where similar problems are starting to show, especially when you have to pay Blizzard money in many cases to do so. Recently, this issue has culminated on the European server Firemore. To put it in perspective, queues begin around 3 PM on the weekdays, and despite Firemore being shown as full, we have other European servers like Gehenna's or Pyrewood Village. These are also listed as full, but I can get in straight away. Checking here at 7 PM UK time, it was over a 6,000 player queue and an estimated 2-hour wait. And this is before the Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch is even out. The situation is past out of hand. Retail ended up growing to this stage and they did cross-realm servers and sharding. Classic only has a layering, which as we can see with Firemore at the moment, can grow to a point where it just doesn't work anymore. Blizzard would either have to go with a full retail solution to the problem, which if them wanting to remove LFD for social reasons is any indicator, tells me there's 0% chance of this happening, or they force people to play elsewhere, which they won't do either, because Blizzard aren't going to start randomly moving characters and deciding who can play where. And there has been an update to this recently. Blizzard has closed Firemore for a period of time, meaning no new characters can be created there. This has currently been ongoing for a week and appears to be the solution that Blizzard are going to put forwards, but it's only ever going to be a temporary one. Simply put, it's an impossible situation where the players won't change their behavior because it doesn't make sense for them to do so, and Blizzard won't change their behavior because it doesn't make sense for them to do so. I full on think they're going to let people ride out 12-hour queues come Wrath launch and let it fix itself. I mean, it worked for Classic, right? Next, PvP servers. Open world PvP and the notion of a faction war has been a large failure of classic WoW, and the two-faction system just doesn't work. War mode was the answer that Blizzard eventually came up with for this issue in retail, which you could turn on to activate buffs to experience, special PvP talents, and other benefits, and it could be toggled on or off from major cities. Whilst I would say it was objectively an improvement over PvP servers, it turned out to just more or less be a free buff for the overall larger faction. In fact, the most world PvP you see out of war mode is when one side gets a huge incentive buff added, like a raid quality piece of gear, and then they just go stand at a flight path in groups and gank unfortunate people landing there. I may have done this several times. People aren't interested in the activity, only the reward. And now officially retail is getting cross-faction play in 9.25. I'm surprised it's been this overdue. Over in Classic, there is literally a handful of PvP servers within a 5% faction balance ratio. According to public data on ironforge.pro, there are currently 44 servers which have an active raiding and arena population of 300 or less. And a huge number of these servers are just total wastelands. There is absolutely no point playing on unless you are a bot, to be honest. And 43 of them are PvP servers. So many servers went from a decent population to flat out zero in the space of a few weeks. It's actually impressive how organized players have been at doing this. No server at 3,000 population or less is safe from just disappearing off the face of Azeroth. All it takes is a few big guilds leading the move, and that can be it. And where do people transfer off to? Yeah, you already know. The biggest server they possibly can. And the conversation here always boils down to a chicken and egg blame game of who is making things bad. Players in choosing how to interact with the game, or Blizzard by allowing them to do so. Then again, it's Blizzard who hold the ability to actually forcefully make change. But why would you stop people from doing what they want if the player base is actively choosing to do that and is not dropping? That's the second point then. PvP servers. I don't imagine there's going to be too many left by midway through Wrath of the Lich King. Thirdly then, and I think this one is on the player base, let me ask you a question. There's no wrong answers, just out of interest. So when you're raiding, if you do, what do you like more about it? Is it the actual acts of raiding, killing bosses, playing your class, hanging out and so on? Or is it getting item upgrades from raiding content? I guess what I'm asking is, if you do raid and you get no upgrades, do you feel frustrated or like it was a waste of time? Now, this has always been a thing. There's always been a lot of players who play the game to receive epics, and once they've got all the epics, they quit until the next patch drops. Do you know anyone who finally got that trinket they wanted, Under Fury, Skull of Gul'dan or Glaives, and then they quit 2 weeks later? I swear this happens a lot in Classic, more so than ever did in retail. I think there's been a big swing in the player base to treating the game as a series of goals to hit, rather than having World of Warcraft, well, as an MMORPG, as a persistent world that they want to spend a lot of time in, whether it's for the PvP, the PvE, social interaction, or otherwise. This is why things such as buying gold bid runs for raiding content, boosting characters either from Blizzard or from majors in game, have all become so widely accepted as a normal way to play the game. Simply put, this is just the most quote-unquote efficient route to reach a goal, and by such an enormous margin as well. And I really don't think it's reflected too well on how the game was designed compared to how people are choosing to play it nowadays. Everyone wants something for their time. They want gold from raid, they want to reserve items in dungeons, and just some general guarantee that you won't feel as though you've wasted your time when you're playing a game. Makes you think. And yes, I agree, Blizzard could certainly do a better job overall on things such as communication with the player base and saying what they want the game to be, but let me tell you, they get hard flamed on literally any post they make about anything. For real though, when it comes to taking feedback, what Blizzard get from the community is pretty much unanimously divided without exception. They make tier tokens be able to turn in for PvP gear, people complain about having spent their points. They lock Firemore because it's starting to see insane queues, people complain they can't create characters there. Blizzard say they're going to remove the LFD from Wrath, a feature which they have continually received feedback that it was only ever negative for the game, and the player base 180s it and say it's vital to include instead. I don't think I've seen another player base that disagrees so heavily on everything as with Classic WoW, and I've played old school RuneScape. Anyways, that's it, just some more random thoughts I suppose today. The problems that happened with retail are reoccurring at turbo pace with more and maxing in Classic, and unless there are new solutions offered by Blizzard, well, I don't exactly see things improving. That's about everything though. Let me know your thoughts on the video and whether you've experienced any of these, and as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one very soon.